Austerity was the truth, the belief for many years.
Germany has the wrong business model.
The infrastructure of the country is crumbling.
Die Gänge, in denen sich die Kinder bewegen müssen, sind wie eine Baustelle, wie ein Bergwerk.
Bits and pieces from the roof started falling down, and it was deemed unsafe for the kids to learn here. So many schools need to be renovated.
Und das nicht nur für ihre Gesundheit.
Every day the trains are delayed, and when I make it on time, I won the lotto.
It's not just shame, it's just like it's annoying. And like you want to have a country that works.
The debt brake reform is a very seismic shift.
500 billion euros to modernize the country's aging infrastructure.
There are no debt brake constraints on defense at all anymore. This push into defense, some economists see it as a big opportunity for car makers.
Making Germany's economy strong in the way that they're now imagining, making Germany's defense strong in the way that they're now planning, is a necessary condition not just for the revitalization of Germany, but for the revitalization of Europe.
Merz doesn't have a choice. He has to succeed. Friedrich Merz, the leader of the Christian Democrats and now the Chancellor, created an ad hoc fund of 500 billion euros over 12 years to modernize and renovate the country's aging infrastructure, roads, hospitals, schools.
The second serious change is the government has now the legal leeway to spend as much as it wants on defense, and there are no debt brake constraints on defense at all anymore.
Deutschland ist zurück. Deutschland leistet seinen großen Beitrag zur Verteidigung der Freiheit und des Friedens in Europa. Wir belassen es bei den 500 Milliarden an Kreditermächtigung für ein solches Sondervermögen.
The basic idea is to invest more, to launch more public investment, because the public investment at this point in Germany is under supply. And that's why the government decided to change the constitution. The hope is that with the relaxation of the debt brake, Germany will be able to launch more infrastructure spending and therefore stimulate the economy.
It's a big gamble in the sense that it's a massive amount of money.
To try and understand what the debt brake is, one has to go back into the ideology of post-war Germany. Economic policies were designed to achieve stability, which is a thing that they didn't have in the interwar period and in their view led to Hitler. This explains the monetary stability fetish, creation of the Bundesbank as an independent central bank, but they also are very concerned that bad fiscal policy, excessive debts and deficits will also destabilize the economy and possibly lead to inflation.
The debt brake was established in 2009. We're in the middle of the financial crisis. Germany has to spend a lot of money to counter the crisis. They want to finally put a lid on debt and say, you know, now we're for once going to take on lots of debt, but we're never going to do it again. So we put this rule into the constitution.
The debt brake capped borrowing to 0.35% of GDP every year. The federal states had no ability to take on any debt.
Everything got back into this very conservative mindset of absolute fiscal and monetary stability.
But in quite an audacious step, decided to change the constitution using the old parliament. Between the election and the formation of the new one, there was a kind of time window of several weeks, and they rushed the change of the constitution through.
In Germany, you need a 2/3 majority to change the constitution, and we needed to reform our debt brake. We saw the difficulties our country is in with an almost rotten infrastructure, and we wanted to be part of solving that problem and making it possible to pass that bill.
Germany has woken up to the fact that it has significant defense obligations and burdens because Russia is clearly seen as a threat and the United States is no longer seen as a reliable ally. The infrastructure of the country is crumbling.
Germany has the wrong business model. It is over-reliant on exports at a time when globalization is falling apart. Nationalism is on the rise. Protectionism is on the rise. And its core industries, the heavy manufacturing industries, are under attack by Chinese manufacturers.
Germany bounced back after the pandemic, but since this bouncing back in 22, the economy has basically been flatlining.
The economy is struggling with decarbonization, making it harder to have electricity at a competitive cost. And now the global trade wars are really impacting the German economy, and especially car manufacturing is just not what it was before. And that is really the big driver for a lot of things.
Germany outsourced its energy supplies to Russia, consumption to China, and security to the US. And all of these three factors have now come under threat. The German model has failed or has to be reworked. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, German defense policy completely changed focus. For many years, the political idea was, we don't need a force that is able to defend our territory. We only need a force which kind of does overseas operations like in Afghanistan. Conscription was abolished. The army was really shrunken quite significantly.
Germany has really relied on the US and NATO for its defense and its security, and didn't really think of its army as a real army because of its fraught past, history, its central role in the Second World War, the Nazi regime.
It really took the Russian and full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 to change that political perspective.
It's an honor to have you. As you know, the Chancellor just won a great election, very, very strong election.
The loss of the US as the pillar of European security demands that Europe responds. Otherwise it fragments. And then for Germany, that's a catastrophe. And whenever you think about the history of Germany, you have to look at the map. Why did they get involved in all these terrible wars? Because they're right in the middle. They're surrounded by neighbors. For the first time in their history, their neighbors are all friendly. They're bound to them by the EU treaty. They have to protect this because it's about protecting themselves. And they're the biggest economy. So they have to take these actions. They have to be a leader.
That requires a lot of spending because Germany didn't have any helicopters that could fly and any jets that could fly, or very few of them.
Some of the bridges could not sustain tanks. Infrastructure needs to be modernized to sustain the defense ramp-up.
The immediate positive spillovers on economic growth from simple defense investment is relatively limited. This push into defense, some economists see it as a big opportunity for car makers, which are facing this structural shift.
Lots of suppliers for the car industry can actually also work for the defense industry. Will it be enough to bring about the economic miracle? I'm not convinced.
Defense spending is not always investment, and it goes often into consumption or into salaries. So there's a balance to be struck between investment purposes of defense that stimulates the economy and the running of the army.
If defense spending doesn't occur, Germany will remain weak. The Americans will look at this and they will say, you're not committing anything to NATO. We're going to really wash our hands of you and of all your allies. And that means of NATO. And that will be terrible for Germany. The Russians will look at them and say, Europe is weak. It's not prepared to defend itself. It's not prepared to build up its economy. We can poke more and more here. Potentially, this could even lead to a situation in which the EU starts breaking up because countries will start saying, well, actually, it would make better sense for us to do a deal with Russia. They have to find a way of building up the defense capacity of the country, so they have to spend money. There's no alternative.
The Merkel years of government were years of underinvestment in our infrastructure. That has led to our substance of our country deteriorating year by year.
Germany's train system is very dysfunctional. Trains do not run on time most of the time, and it's really due to a lack of investment, also lack of personnel.
Demand for trains and for train travel has risen due to climate change considerations and people deliberately not wanting to use domestic flights. If it's so unreliable, people go back to driving or using the plane. So people are very frustrated about that, obviously.
My name is Laura, and I'm working in Frankfurt. So I bring my daughter every day here to school, and then I have to take the train and go all the way to Frankfurt to my job. It's not easy when I'm coming back and I have to pick her up every day. Actually, the trains are delayed, and I always need a backup plan. So in case I don't make it, I have to call people and say, please, can you pick her up? When I make it on time, I won the lotto. We start making fun about it, like when you talk about somebody that is not on time or is always late, you say it's like the German train.
We do feel what Laura is going through. This is something we are facing for the last years. It's not only that our infrastructure is too old, but also too congested.
Sometimes the trains just stop. So it can be 20 minutes or 30 minutes. It's frustrating.
Unser nächster Fahrplan mit Sicherheit ist der Ziel und ein Bahnhof Frankfurt. Wir wünschen eine angenehme Reise.
So the good news for Laura is that we have been able to stop the aging process of our infrastructure that caused so much problems with the delay, with unpunctuality of our trains. We invested a record number of 19 billion euros last year in 2024 into the renovation of our infrastructure. If we continue doing so, it will be better. It won't be better overnight, but it will be better in a couple of years.
So now it's like 2:35 and I have to leave work a little bit earlier because I just saw in the app that the train that I would like to take at 3:19, it's cancelled. I will be later than I should be at home and pick up my daughter from school. It's every day the same thing.
This lacking infrastructure goes against the German identity of efficiency, of punctuality. Look, if a train goes from Germany to Switzerland, the Swiss train system, they usually stop the German train at the border because the German train arrives late. And they don't let the German trains in anymore, spoiling the Swiss punctuality. So this tells a lot about the problem.
We have 1/3 of trains that is delayed in the long-distance network. It means that still 2/3 are punctual, which is not that bad, but clearly not sufficient and not what the public expects from the railways.
Punctuality statistics are pretty bad and have gone worse in recent years. That's despite the fact that only trains that run more than 6 minutes late are actually counted as late. And all those many trains which get cancelled don't enter these numbers at all.
There is a shortage of train drivers, there is a shortage of people who are manning the signal boxes, there is a shortage of the people who have to approve construction works, and right now we have construction work that has completed and the railway lane cannot be reopened because those scarce people are not available. And Deutsche Bahn forgot for years to train them, and all these management failures are now adding to the other problems that the infrastructure has.
The renovation of infrastructure in Germany is not going to happen overnight. There are a lot of bureaucratic hurdles. And there's also perhaps a question of capacity.
There are no, to my mind, financial or economic constraints on what they can do, but I'm sure there are constraints on their actual ability to spend this well. Germany actually couldn't do this investment program tomorrow because these industries have been so shrunken for so long.
Money is not everything. So there are loads of problems, including labor shortage. There are not that many construction companies who could be mobilized, and so prices could go up. Schools, very basic infrastructure, very needed, are crumbling.
Mein Name ist Uwe Gehrmann, ich bin Schulleiter der EGS Süd hier in Frankfurt. Die Gänge, in denen sich die Kinder bewegen müssen, sind wie eine Baustelle, wie ein Bergwerk. Die Eltern, die bei uns sind, die wirklich Angst um die Stabilität dieses Gebäudes haben und damit auch Angst um die Gesundheit ihrer Kinder und Dieses Problem ist ja nicht seit gestern hier bei uns, sondern wir haben dieses Problem schon seit ungefähr 10 Jahren.
They've had to put up support pillars to hold up the structure of this building. It was deemed unsafe for the kids to learn here. Nothing was done until it got so dramatic that bits and pieces from the roof started falling down. Just in Frankfurt, the situation is there are about 60 schools that are falling apart and really need work. And then the situation, obviously goes into the rest of Germany.
Mein Name ist Frau Österreich. Ich bin Schulleiterin am Alexander von Humboldt-Gymnasium im Bezirk Berlin-Treptow-Köpenick. Wir haben besondere Probleme, wie gesagt, beim Platz, den Raumgrößen. Wir natürlich große Probleme. Wir haben keinen Wärmeschutz, weder an den Fenstern noch im Dach. Die Temperaturen sind dann doch sehr schwierig und erreichen leider öfters die Grenze des normalen Möglichen, was für den Unterricht eigentlich erlaubt ist. Das heißt, wir müssen manchmal den Unterricht mehr reduzieren, als vielleicht es nötig wäre. Also die Räume sind sehr im maroden Zustand. Wir haben leider auch sehr viel Löcher in den Wänden, kaputte Wände. Da ist eine Sanierung noch nicht vorgesehen.
Germany is a very decentralized country. The problem then is if the federal level cannot give directly the money to the local municipalities, it always has to go via the states. And the states are sticky. So not all the money that you give to them necessarily ends up in the local municipalities.
Wir haben heute eine Kundgebung organisiert vom Stadtelternbeirat aus, weil wir auf die Missstände der Schulen in Frankfurt aufmerksam machen möchten. Die Kinder werden manchmal die ganze Schulzeit über nur in Containern unterrichtet und haben niemals ein richtiges Schulgebäude. Die Container sind teilweise marode 15 Jahre alt und älter und die Kinder können sich eigentlich gar nicht auf den Unterricht konzentrieren. Mit dem Ausbau. Also ich denke, die Sicherheit der Kinder ist schon teilweise sehr gefährdet, weil wir auch immer Schulen haben, immer wieder, wo herauskommt, dass Asbest in den Wänden ist. Es ist aber auch ansonsten schwierig mit dem Hitzeproblem, was wir haben, weil es in den Containern teilweise eben über 40 Grad warm wird, was auch nicht gesund ist für die Kinder. Also wir fragen uns immer wieder, wie es sein kann, dass in so einer reichen Stadt, auch gerade wie Frankfurt, Deutschland ist ja auch allgemein reich und ein gutes, wohlsituiertes Land, wie man so an den Kindern sparen kann.
The German Ministry of Finance is going to look at how other ministries are going to fund and use this money and will make sure that it's not used for consumptive purposes, will make sure that it goes along with structural reforms. Likewise, for the money that goes to the municipalities and to the Bundesländer, the regions, they come with conditionality attached.
Mein Name ist Felix Paklepper, ich bin Hauptgeschäftsführer beim Zentralverband des deutschen Baugewerbes. Wir repräsentieren 35.000 Mittelständler. Wir haben viel zu lange Planungs- und Genehmigungsverfahren. Ein Beispiel, wenn man ein Haus baut für eine Familie, ein Einfamilienhaus, brauchen wir heute vom Beginn der Planung schon fast 2 Jahre. Bei einer Straße 10 bis 12 Jahre und bei Schienen für die Eisenbahn 18 Jahre. Das heißt, wenn wir jetzt sagen, wir haben dieses Sondervermögen, 500 Milliarden, und das muss schnell eine positive wirtschaftliche Wirkung haben, dann müssen die Planungsverfahren verkürzt werden, sonst werden wir erst in den 30er Jahren bauen.
A lot of the roads and bridges were built in the 60s, the 70s, and now showing cracks, and they're becoming very old. One example is this bridge near Dresden. The bridge literally collapsed. It's still not renovated. It collapsed in 2024. It was a very big shock to the system. It's also quite humiliating. The perception of Germany outside Germany is that it's this great engineering country.
Wir haben 13.000 Kilometer Autobahn in Deutschland und die ist in großem Maße sanierungsbedürftig. Das Hauptproblem sind bei uns die Brücken. Auf den Autobahnen haben wir 4.000 Brücken, die sanierungsbedürftig sind und von denen auch viele gesperrt werden müssen, wenn sie nicht bald saniert werden. Und das ist eines der Hauptprobleme. Die alte Bundesregierung unter Bundeskanzler Scholz hatte sich vorgenommen, 400 Brücken im Jahr zu sanieren, sodass man in 10 Jahren alle Brücken saniert hat. Letztes Jahr haben wir 76 Bauaufträge für Brücken bekommen. Das zeigt, dass wir sind deutlich hinterher.
The problem with Germany is that it's an aging population and they have increasing social costs.
There are other areas of the economy where we would just have a lot of potential for growth, like integrating more women into the labour force, enabling them to work more. Secondly, migration. We mainly talk about it in negative terms at the moment, but actually it's hugely helpful for an aging population because you get more younger people in the workforce. And we haven't really managed to capitalise on these two factors like some other countries have.
Wir müssen deutlich attraktiver werden für ausländische Fachkräfte. Wir sind sehr im Gespräch, zum Beispiel mit auch Ingenieuren aus Indonesien, aber auch aus Südamerika. Und wir stellen fest, wir sind nicht attraktiv genug, weil sie sagen, die Arbeitsbedingungen sind bei euch hoch, die Kosten sind hoch, Taxes, Steuern sind hoch, Sozialabgaben. Und wir finden keine Wohnung in Deutschland.
Germany has high labour costs and it will always have them, even if it's efficient, because the standard of social security that we have in this country is high. We have an old population that costs a lot of money. So you really need people to be productive. And how do you get them to be productive? By having a good education. With migration, it can really boost the labour force. And if you don't teach people German and you don't give them the necessary qualifications, I mean, they will all end up in the benefit system, and I think that's really the big risk.
There must be a risk that inflation will pick up. Germans really don't like inflation. Well, I suspect there will be some political problems associated with this. It's not a free lunch.
If the money that is not spent wisely, alternative for Germany, the far-right party, which is currently the second largest force in parliament, will benefit from it.
There's a risk of a narrative emerging, fueled by the AfD, that this is 500 billion waste if the German government cannot show that over the years the money is actually improving infrastructure and increasing public investment. So that's why it is so important that the money is spent only for investment purposes.
If you're paying taxes and you still don't have a train that runs, and if you see that the school of your daughter is trash, you will no longer really believe in that state. And often state and democracy is equaled. So that investment in our public goods and our infrastructure is an investment in democracy.
The really big danger now is people see a lot of money being spent on the military and on support for Ukraine, and the two in a way go a little bit together. And at the same time that they don't see the spending at the local level in their schools, in their communities, and all the things that make life easier. And that makes people really angry.
If people do feel the difference and do have trains that run again, schools that look nice, they might again then really believe in democracy and in turn lower the votes for AfD. Austerity was the truth, the belief for many years of the conservative and neoliberal politicians that were governing this country. And yes, I've been ashamed of that. It's not just shame, it's just like it's annoying. And like you want to have a country that works.
The new 500 billion are supposed to give Germany back what it's supposed to be, a punctual and efficient government and state. It will, however, take a lot of time until these 500 billion are going to be spent.
It's a gamble in the sense that it might not work, but then life is a gamble. Germany remains a big, rich country. They've made some fairly big mistakes. Their fiscal policy has been far too tight for a very long time. They have been too dependent on foreign demand. China is now overwhelmingly the biggest manufacturing country in the world, a gigantic exporter. The direct threat to Germany, of course it is.
If this gamble wouldn't take place, then the prospects would be really bleak. It will surely improve prospects for GDP growth and for the wider economy.
There is an opportunity for Germany to take a lead in Europe and going into this investment spending to kind of revive the European economy, which largely depends on Germany, but it needs a bit more. I think you need more than infrastructure spending. It's not just infrastructure that has really suffered from austerity, it's also public services. I'm talking about education, childcare, all these things that are really needed to properly boost the labour market and growth.
Making Europe strong is the vital national priority of Germany. Making Germany's economy strong in the way that they're now imagining, making Germany's defense strong in the way that they're now planning, is a necessary condition not just for the revitalization of Germany, but for the revitalization of Europe. Not doing this would be a catastrophe. I believe that the Germans are serious enough and competent enough, they always have been, to get this to work because they have to.
The backdrop is so challenging.
And in a little while I'll be signing for
Adversarial US president, increasing geopolitical tensions. Merz doesn't have a choice. He has to succeed.